So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening whenever you're watching this, and welcome to the Down the Lane podcast, where tonight, me, Barry Carpenter, I'm joined by Miles Reese. Good evening, Miles.
Hello, mate.
And we have Eastbourne Borough legend Ben Austin joining us. Good evening, Ben.
Good evening.
How are you, all right?
All good, mate. Yeah, just
Good
busy
stuff.
as always, but good.
Yeah, good stuff. Right, so Ben, we're going to kind of touch on your Eastbourne Borough career a little bit. You started at Eastbourne Town. How many years were you there before you came to Borough?
I think, I could be corrected on this, but I think I was actually only there for one full season because I actually quit playing football when I was like 16. I sort of just had enough of it. I'd done a lot of it up to the age of 16, and I quit playing. And then I think I was like 18, maybe something like that. And my old PE teacher from school was running Eastbourne Town's third team. I bumped into him and he asked why I wasn't playing, and I just said I just had enough of it. And he said, "Do you not fancy it?" I said maybe, and he said, "Do you want to come down and have a game with the thirds?" I actually did that, and I think I had one game down on Hampden Park, and got kicked around by a bunch of, sort of men who'd basically just looked like they rolled out of a pub. But actually really enjoyed it, and I think that was the only game I played for the thirds, because then I think the reserve team manager asked me to go in with them, and then I think I might have played a couple of games for the Rezzies, and then I think I went in at Town. But I think I can never remember this that well, but I think I played a few games for Town, but then I went away travelling, and it was when I came back from travelling that I then rejoined, and I think it was the season that Langley Sports got promoted from the County League, was the season that I played for Town. And then it was the end of that season where Gary and Nick asked me to go and join.
Yeah, and then you came into Borough. You spent 12 long seasons with us. I say 12 long seasons because we had a few years there at the top level where we had some very long journeys. How did you find that when you first came in, and obviously you became captain in the end? How long was it before you was made captain, and how did that come about?
Yeah, I think I was captain for the second season in the National League. So maybe I think the 2 final years that I was there, 3 final years, because it was 2 in the National League and then 1 when we got demoted back down to the South. It was a pretty long audition, but I think being a local lad, the way that it went was always that we had that kind of core of local lads, and as we progressed through the levels, they would bring in players from out of area to kind of supplement what we had. And often those players coming in had a kind of bigger reputation, if you like, because they'd been at bigger clubs, more established clubs at that time. So it kind of went with that, really, because they were bringing in players who'd been captains at previous clubs, or had more experience at the level. So I was always fine with it. The captaincy, it was nice when I got it, because I felt like it was a nice way to kind of finish off my time, and I felt like I'd done enough at the club to maybe warrant that. But the armband itself never really, it didn't change anything about the way that I was, if you get what I mean. Like I never really changed. I always tried to be a leader if I could on the pitch, in terms of leading by example, in terms of performance, and just being around the lads and that sort of thing. So yeah, but it took a long time to get there.
Did you imagine you'd play so many games for us as well, Ben? Did you, when you first joined back in sort of early 2000s, did you think you'd get to, must be over a few hundred games you had for us by the time you retired?
Yeah, I can't remember whether it's just under or just over 500, but I think, I don't know, it's a difficult question to answer that, because the truth is that I always felt like I had the ability, but you don't know that you've got the ability for sure because you've not done it. I was one of those where, believe it or not, and this was part of the reason why I had such bad issues with my back, is I was really, really small. Until I was like 17, I was like really, when I say small, I was like really small. To the point where, my parents would take me to the hospital and I'd have appointments for why is he not growing type thing. That's about the only similarity I have to Lionel Messi, was that sort of like, being really small and never checked. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I always felt as a youngster that I had a decent level of ability and I had that kind of desire to do well. But part of the reason I quit football was because I got released at 16. And the reason given was that I physically wasn't as competent as some of the others. And I think that's what really done for me in that sense. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not surprised that I played that many games, if that makes sense, because I always felt like I had it in me. But I think you need a lot of luck along the way, like with injuries. I think you need managers who favour you, because you know you can easily get a manager comes in who doesn't, and then it changes everything. So yeah, I mean it's a lot of games, right? It's it's a
Yeah,
lot of
definitely,
games. It's a
100%.
club. And it would have been more if I hadn't have had that season out, a whole season out with my back. So yeah.
Yeah, you probably grew with a level as well, like coming in when it was sort of would have been that's pretty before my time, but sort of like step four as it were now, and then going up to the county prem or the conference national was known then. Like you probably felt like you grew with the level as you matured as a player. Would you say?
Yeah, and I think that's an advantage that you have when you go through the levels is that you you learn one level and what that needs, and then you step up and you've got players coming in around you who make that transition slightly easier because they've been there before and got that quality. But I mean, we kind of jumped quite quickly because we went into the Southern League when they came out of the County League, and then we actually went straight from the Southern League into the National South because they restructured everything. And I think we had to finish in the top 13 to get into the National League, and I think we finished like 12th maybe or 13th even. So that jump from I was playing County League, we went into the Southern League, and then all of a sudden we're at step 2. But the truth is that it never felt uncomfortable. I never felt like I was struggling at that level. And actually, I would say that the higher we went, in many ways, the easier I found it. I think partly because you've got better players around you, and as a team, obviously in the National League we struggled. Especially the second season we struggled and we stayed up. The third season obviously was a real struggle, but that was largely just around teams had much better resources, bigger squads. Weren't doing a day's work before heading up to a game type thing. But personally, I used to really relish the challenge of playing against these full-time players, and I always felt like I felt comfortable at that level.
And obviously, you had Gary as manager for that whole period of time, so you knew what was expected of you. But I've often said to other people that I feel if I asked any of you guys, and obviously we'll be touching more on this in the summer when we do the Gary Wilson Years series. But did you ever feel, when you first came into the Southern League in 2000, did you ever feel that actually you could play at the highest level of non-league football? Or was it kind of the same manager, the same squad around you, so you knew what other players were doing? Because obviously a lot of you stayed together for a long period of time.
Yeah, I think a bit of both. I mean, the thing is, you don't really give it any thought like that, Like when you're playing in the Southern League, I wasn't, because football's different. Like the way it is now is different. Like everyone seems to be aspiring to get, into the Football League or to play at the highest level of non-league. I think mainly because the financial rewards are so much better now, than they were then. There's kids playing now in Step 6 who are earning the same money that I was earning in the National League. And so I think I didn't really think of it like that. I wasn't ever playing thinking about, I could go to the next level or I could go higher. I always felt that I had it within me. Like I say, you're playing those levels and feeling like I'm doing well at this level and I could be challenged more. But you're 100% right about the fact that we had just that core group of players who you could almost, let's say hypothetically, like Gary and Nick were like sick, and we had like a temporary manager come in for 5 games. I honestly don't think it would have, and that's not being disrespectful to Gary and Nick because it was because of them that we were the way we were. But it's almost like the team just knew each other's games so well, like we knew each other so well that actually it didn't really matter. Like we would have just gone out and done it anyway. Because I mean, Matt Smart, for example, like we had a way of playing, and Smarty used to say you would get the ball on the half turn in the midfield, and he wouldn't even look up. He would just turn and drill it, switch it out wide, because he knew that the way we would have moved within that system, we'll be there waiting to receive it, and it was a bit like that, really. Yeah.
And you learned that from each other, didn't you, over the years? So,
yeah.
Talking to Matt Smart, we can't forget, obviously, his 83rd minute winner when we was on a bad run. I think we'd gone about 15, 20 games winless, and he scored a free kick that you tell us earlier he pushed you off. Is that right? Would you have scored it if you?
Yeah, because the free kick was inside our half. I was, the last thing in my mind was that anyone would be shooting. So I've kind of gone over, and I think I either spotted the ball or I was by the ball, and I'm kind of looking up, thinking, who can I, play short to, or who can I play in? And Smarty, he walked. So I'm facing their goal, right, facing forward, and he's walking towards me. And I remember he came towards me, and he just really casually walked past me in the opposite direction and went, "Move off the ball." And I was like, "What?" He went, "Get out of the way." Like that, and I was like, "All right, okay." So I just stepped aside, and he just turned and just drilled it. And it was brilliant, because we were probably given no chance going to Fleetwood to win that game. I think they were doing quite well at the time, and obviously it was a well-established club. And it was a hell of a goal. And Smarty will never let anyone forget about it, which is fair enough.
No, and I might send him a message and see if he's got the footage of it that we can, add into this pod somewhere.
He'll definitely
100%. 100%. I think he made Sky Sports, didn't he, as in the top 3 goals of the week or something. So,
yeah, 100%. Yeah, and actually I think we got a standing ovation. We got clapped off by the Fleetwood fans from that game, because I think the thing was at that time was that all these clubs that we were playing that were full time, big budgets, looking to get out of the National League, recognised quite what a feat it was. Because I think at the time, I could be wrong on this, but I'm sure I got told at the time that I think at that point we were the only club to have entered the National League as a part-time team and survived for more than one season. And the fact that we managed 3, I think, probably was recognised by people that's a hell of a feat. Just accumulatively the fatigue from the travel and season on season, and it just catches up with you basically. We proved in that first season that we could compete, but it just got harder season on season.
And also it was squad size, wasn't it? I mean, I remember when we went to Wrexham for the first time, and I think Dean Saunders was manager, and there was like about 20 guys in tracksuits behind the dugout, and I was like, what are they all doing there? And he's like, oh, they're part of the squad. And it's like, you're thinking, you got 11, 12 players out there warming up. You've got another 20 players sort of sit, and that was huge for when we was probably lucky to have 20 at the time,
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, just as the contrast there in terms of, it's been spoken about before, but I don't know if it was that game at Wrexham, but one of the games at Wrexham, was it an evening game? Was it like a Tuesday night game?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that may well be the one where, I'm at school teaching and the coach has left in the morning and I can't get on it because I'm teaching. I'm at school. My head at the time was good, and she'd agreed to timetable me off on a Tuesday afternoon after lunch and on a Friday afternoon after lunch to give me an opportunity to go with the team, like when I could, if we were staying overnight. And that Tuesday they went to Wrexham, and I left work, I think, at about 12:30, drove down to Lewes train station, jumped on a train from Lewes to Wrexham on my own. I got off the train at Wrexham at, I think, about 7:10. And I said to the steward on the station, I said, which way's the racecourse ground? And he went, turn around, it's down there. So I've legged it down to the ground. When I got to the ground, the changing room or the entrance was right around the other side of the ground. So I got in the changing room. I think I got in there at about 7:20. And they've just got there, and Gary and Nick went, you're starting, get changed. and we're kicking off in 25 minutes, you know. So like I've got changed and I'm going out to warm up on my own as the rest of the team are coming in from the warm up. So I'm out there on the racecourse ground with however many thousands of supporters warming up on my own. Yeah, and then played the 90 minutes. I think we lost 1-0, I can't remember, but anyway, we lost the game. And then jumped on the coach going home because obviously I could get the coach back, and I got to my car at Lewes station at about 3:30 in the morning, 3:45. And I thought, well, I've got to be at work in 3 hours and there's no point going home. So I drove straight to school, let myself in the sports hall and slept on a crash mat for a few hours.
No, it's incredible.
Yeah, and that was just how it was. And that happened on, a number of occasions where it was just a case of getting through.
Yeah, and I mean, some of these stories, obviously as a part-time footballer in that league, that was what had to be done. And that wasn't the only journey that you would have made. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that. One thing before I pass on to Miles so he can ask you a few questions is, in your time at Borough, there was obviously some characters in the changing room. And when we do the Gary Wilson years, I'm hoping to get probably guys that were there in your early days, but I'm going to try and get one with Nutsy and Brownie because obviously that's going to be a laugh a minute because but both practical jokers. But who would you say was your top character or your top 2 or 3 characters that you had in the changing room at the time?
I mean, Brownie definitely. I mean, I wasn't actually there that long with Brownie because I think he wasn't. I think maybe a season or 2, possibly.
That was probably a result, Ben, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still mates with Brownie now, but I mean, he is an absolute wrong un. So Brownie would be one. Nutsy also. I mean, you could talk all day about those two, but just very quickly, a couple that stick in my mind. Brownie nicked Nick Greenwood's car keys at training and put them in the bottom of the bin, right? Just for like a bit of banter. But he didn't realise that Nick was on call with the fire service. And halfway through training, he's been called out on call and he's come running in and he's come out going, "Where's my car keys? Like, I've got to go on call, blah, blah." And he was so angry that Brownie basically like crapped himself and didn't have the bottle to tell him that he'd nicked his keys and put them in the bottom of the bin. So I think Nick ended up having to get either somebody to come and bring his spare set of keys from Seaford so that he could drive on call, or he had to make some arrangement. And yeah, Brownie never did tell him. Like he so if Nick ever watches,
you've just grassed him up, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't care. And then Nutsy, he put he cut the foot off a chicken, like the claw foot off a chicken. And when Gary went to the toilet on the coach once going to a game, he got Gary's lunch out, took his roll out of the tinfoil and put the chicken foot in it and wrapped it all back up. And then we're all just sitting there waiting for Gary to eat his lunch. And then he's taken a bite out of this roll and obviously pulled it away and he's got his chicken foot hanging out of his mouth and he's like, fuming. But no, those two definitely. There's been a few others. Like Matt Smart was good value. Like he was always up for the crack. Dan Brown was a big character when he came in.
Came from Cambridge, didn't he?
He came from Cambridge, yeah. Good player, yeah. Dan was. Good player.
Yeah, very good, very good.
Yeah, there were loads. Lee Hook was another one. Stuart Tuck for his own reasons. I mean, plenty of them.
Good stuff. Miles, hand over to you for a little while.
Yeah, no, some great stories in there. I sort of gutted I missed the golden era, I guess. I've been supporting us for the last 10 years, so I missed all the glory days. But I just want to touch back on probably the club's best moment, winning the playoff final, Stevenage, I believe it was, against Hampton and Richmond. What's your memories from that day?
Yeah, I mean,
before you go, Ben, can I just add, we were shocking that day. It was one of the worst games we played, I think, for about 3 or 4 years.
Do you know what? I think over the course of the season, we definitely deserved to go up. Right?
Yes.
I don't know how many points we finished above Hampton. I can't remember if it was close or whether it was a few points.
Find out for you.
But we were definitely. I think over the course of the season, we definitely deserved to go up. On the night, we were second best by a distance. But I think, to be honest, it was almost the perfect way to go up, because I think that game epitomised what our team was about. Like, so what a lot of people don't know, or maybe they do know, but I can't imagine it's absolutely common knowledge unless you were kind of a diehard at the time or whatever. But we got the coach. The game was originally meant to be played at Gravesend and Northfleet, and it got switched to Stevenage. I'm sure I'm right in saying that, because my mum and dad were going to come, but then when it got switched, they decided not to. But the game was on Setanta, so they said, like, we'll just stay and we'll watch it elsewhere. But we got the coach up, and we got to, I think it might have been Pease Pottage for a pickup, and the coach broke down. And they were scrambling to try and get the coach fixed or get another coach there. They couldn't get another coach there. They couldn't get anybody there to fix the coach. So we basically had to cram the entire squad into the cars that were there for the meet at Pease Pottage. So we only had, I think, maybe 4 cars. And so we had, like, in some cars, there were like 3 or 4 stacked in the back and like 1 in the front. And I remember sitting in the front of whoever's car it was, and Armo was trying to have, Paul Armstrong was trying to have his pre-match while we were stuck in traffic, because of the breakdown, we hit all the traffic as well. And we were sat there, and he had a 2-litre milk carton, and he had I think it was Weetabix, which was what his pre-match was. And on the coach, he would have had it in a bowl and put his milk in. But he's had to get a car key. He had to pour some of the milk out the window onto the motorway. Got a car key, cut round the carton, and put his Weetabix inside the milk carton with the milk, and let it soak. And he was like literally guzzling it out of the thing on the way up there. And we actually arrived. We arrived really late to the game, like really late. And then there was some kind of hold up, I don't know. But yeah, we got there and we got in the change. I think, again, we got in the change rooms at about like 7:15, and kickoff 7:10. Kickoff was quarter to 8. So it completely disrupted the pre-match. Obviously, you had all the cameras there for Setanta. They're all in the changing room. Everything's different. It wasn't really our like vibe, if you like. That wasn't like what we were used to. But it was a really, really bad preparation for the game. And actually, we had a very short warm-up. Like, we had to literally race to get changed. I don't think they moved the kickoff. I think they kept it at 7:45 because of the TV. So we had like a 10-15 minute warm-up. Real quick team talk, went out, and we just got like caught like in a kind of listen, if I was Hampton's manager, I'd have been saying, go at them early. Like, they've had a stinker here. Like, they're late. Their preparation's been shocking. Get after them. And they did, to be fair. But, yeah, my memories of it are that we were backs to the wall for a lot of that game. But I think I'm right in saying that season, I actually had it on my phone because I was so proud of it. I'll see if I can find it. But I think that season we had something like, out of the 30... or 40 games, or 44 games, whatever we played, I think we kept like 20 clean sheets that season. Yeah. And I think our like goals conceded, I've definitely got it here somewhere. If I find it, I'll tell you. But
if not Miles will definitely find it.
No, there you go. So it was we kept 20 clean sheets in 45 games, and we only conceded, I believe, over the course of that season, 28 goals. Now, like, that's mad, really, in terms of we probably weren't always the most flamboyant team, although we did have that in us, but we were just really hard to beat. And I think that's what showed on that night. I mean, Hampton threw everything at us. We just batted everything away. We defended brilliantly, and then in the key moments of the game, we had a couple of lads who, I think Andy Atkin got one, and Nathan Crabb maybe was the other.
I think it was Crabby, Nathan.
Crabby got the second one, I'm sure. But yeah, and I think that epitomised really what our team was about. And I remember being absolutely exhausted at the end of that game, because we just put so much. We had to defend for so long in that game, backs to the wall, but we just gritted it out. And I actually remember, I think with about 5 minutes to go, I've made a defensive like interception or tackle, and the pitch just opened up in front of me, and I thought, I'm just going to go. And it was a terrible idea, because I was gassed. I had no legs. And I thought, I'm going anyway. And I thought, the pitch just kept opening up, and I think I jinked past one guy, and then I sort of cut inside, and then I'm there and I'm 1-on-1 with the last defender, but like sort of just inside their half, and I should have just rolled, I think it was Andy Atkin in, but I got all excited and I thought my name's going to be in lights, and I think I might even have just tripped over the ball because I was so knackered. And then I just remember being flat on my face on the grass and thinking, I've got zero energy to run back now. It's absolutely shot. But yeah, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. And when the final whistle went, I think it was just, there were so many supporters at that time who never ever imagined that we would ever achieve that. We would never get to the National League. And it was, it was brilliant. It was really
I'm not gonna lie to you, I definitely cried that night. It was it was you guys in front of us. We was in that stand along the side, wasn't we? We weren't behind the goal. We was on in that stand along the side, and that was an amazing day. And of course, in that season, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say one better than that. Dave Blackmore, you'll know Dave Blackmore, obviously.
Yeah.
He always tells me that, I didn't remember this, but at the end of that game, he asked, because he said it to me. He could have been lying. Now you can ask him, but I think he said at that time I was his favourite player. So he asked for my shirt, and I thought, well, we're not going to use these shirts again because, so I gave him my shirt, like sweaty as hell. And he told me that he wore it home and then wore it to bed that night.
It was definitely an amazing end to an amazing season. And sorry to jump in quickly, Miles, but obviously one of the games in that season, we went unbeaten till Christmas. It was us and Lewes, obviously, up the top there. And I think one of my favourite games, just for the banter side of it alone, was Boxing Day away at Lewes, where they were 2-0 up and they thought they'd beaten us. Yeah. And we scored 2 in the last 5 minutes, and all them Lewes fans had to walk past us. It was like amazing that we, and then obviously they beat us on New Year's Day, which was probably fair because 100%. They were the better side on Boxing Day. But it was just we weren't giving up, and we didn't want to be beaten.
No.
And in front of 2 massive crowds as well. I mean, I think it was like 2-7 there and 3-1 at home or something like that. It was huge.
Yeah, and I think again that just epitomises what we had no right to be competing with Lewes. I mean, they had a big budget at the time. Like Steve King was in charge. They had players coming from higher levels. They had a deep squad, and the fact that we'd both gone unbeaten until that point. And the Boxing Day I remember well because I remember we were 2-0 down and then we got one back, and then I think again I'm pretty sure, from memory, I think I'd sort of dribbled out of defence and I think I played it maybe wide and then it went in the box, and then I think Andy Atkin again might have scored the equaliser, I'm not sure. But that was great. And then New Year's Day they look, it was a close-ish game. It was a 1-0 game, but the fact was they had better quality in their side than we had. But we made up for that with grit and determination and togetherness, and
100%. And that togetherness is what I was speaking about earlier. Sorry, Miles, you carry on.
No, you're fine, mate. No, it's good to hear. We were just saying off air before you came on, Ben, about the Senior Cup in 2008, 2009. We won against Brighton, but you didn't play, so I just want to expand on your story on that one. That'd be great.
It was. I was recovering from appendicitis.
Nasty one.
Yeah, it was as well. The operation didn't go well. Like they burst basically because they left me so long saying, "Oh, we're not sure it is," that they then burst, which obviously delayed the recovery because it was a more serious op than it needed to be probably. We were. I'm pretty sure we were coming back from Grantham. I think it was Grantham we were coming back from. Again, I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure we'd won. I think we might even have won like 5-0, something like that. Good night. Coming back on the coach, and I just remember suddenly not feeling great, and feeling like I had this kind of constant stomach ache, and I got home and I was like, I just don't really feel that well. And I remember ringing my mum actually at that time and saying to her, look, I don't know if there's something wrong, And she said, well, look, like wait till the morning, or wait till later in the morning, sorry. And then eventually anyway I ended up down the hospital. I had appendicitis, and it was just bad timing really because you don't want to, regardless of what cup final it is. I mean, I know people sort of devalue the Sussex Senior Cup now, but I think back then there were more teams locally that were closer in levels, and so and the fact that it was against Brighton, which at that point was a bit of a scalp. Yeah, it was. So it was a shame to miss it. I think Mark Goodwin might have scored the winner in that game. I don't know if you remember Mark Goodwin.
After extra time, it was.
It was an extra time winner from Mark Goodwin.
I'm not sure about Mark Goodwin. I haven't got the scores up, unfortunately, and I was 5, I think it was wasn't there.
No, no, it was a good win. I remember it was on a bone hard, dry, end of season pitch. Yeah, against Lewes. It was against Lewes, wasn't it? It was against Lewes.
No, it was against Brighton.
Okay, yeah, it might have been another one against Lewes. Yeah, so no, I missed out on that one, unfortunately. And then actually, ironically, the next Senior Cup final that I think we got to, which was the first one ever played at the Amex.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yep.
I also missed that one because it was my sister's wedding.
Wow. Oh.
So I don't think I ever played in a Senior Cup final for Borough, despite the fact that they made a couple. I've got a few weird ones like that. Like I think I'm the only captain of Eastbourne Borough ever to get them relegated.
Oh wow!
You probably are actually. Yeah.
Let's hope you keep the tradition this season as well. No offence.
Yeah, well, let's see.
Yeah.
Hi guys, I'm Gary. I'm the owner of Polegate Car Sales. If you're looking to buy or sell your vehicle anywhere in the country, I am your man. We're open 7 days a week. Sunday is appointment only, but Ben works 6 till 10 any hour God sends. We look forward to seeing you soon.
So obviously, your time at Borough came to an end at the end of 2012, but Gary had gone in the January. That must have been a hard time for you guys because obviously you've been there so long with Gary and Nick, and then you got the phone call to take the dugout for a couple of games.
Yeah.
How did that all come about, and how did you feel at that time?
It was actually a really difficult time because the truth of the matter was that I think Gary now would. I mean, he has said it since, and I'm sure he would say it now that he probably feels he should have stepped away at the end of the season that we got relegated from the National League, because it's almost like you've hit that pinnacle, and actually the chances of us ever getting back there was always going to be slim, and like what more is there to achieve type thing. And I think when you come down, you're on that kind of you've had a tough season where you've taken a lot of losses and it's quite deflating, and trying to rebuild a squad. Especially when you know that a lot of that squad were the squad that got you there, so you know that they're good enough to play the level, but it's just it's the dynamic and kind of the it just changes because of the season that you've had. And the sad thing about it was really that I remember at the time Len Smith, the chairman, asked to speak to me as the captain and just said, look, what do we do? Because we've come down, and it's not uncommon actually for teams to come down and struggle. You see it quite a lot. And the reality was that something had changed, and it wasn't anybody's fault, but it was just, it felt like it needed something new. Because we wasn't on a great run. I mean, listen, I do still think we would have survived that season. I think, because they were worried about us dropping down the table. I do think we still had enough quality, and I do think we would have survived it. And actually, I'd missed quite a lot of that season because I was awaiting an operation on my groin and a hernia at the end of the season. We got relegated from the National League, and I had that done in the summer, and I had quite a long recovery. So yeah, I remember Len asking me what's it like in the dressing room, etc. And I've always tried to be an honest guy, and I just sort of said, look, honestly, it does feel like something needs to change. And then, they made the decision, obviously, to get rid of Gary and Nick. And I was actually at training when Len Smith asked to speak to me, so I had to come out of training. And he just sort of said, look, can you look after it while we look for a new manager? And it was a really difficult one because, I didn't want to give any impression that I wanted to manage at that point, because I didn't. I was still a player. Yeah, it was hard. It was hard because I know Gary and Nick particularly took it quite hard, understandably. you know, and yeah. So I said, look, I'll look after it for a couple of games, but you know, I have no interest in doing this. Like, I want to be playing. I want to get back to fitness. And then yeah, they asked AD Colwell to come in, and Len spoke to me and said, I've asked AD to come in and work with you for the short term. So yeah, I think I only had it for like maybe two league games and one senior cup game. And I think that senior cup game was away at Lewes. So what I like to refer to is the fact I had a 100% win rate in the senior cup as a manager. That's
great
that
stat.
was my go-to. Yeah, so yeah.
We'll keep that one. We won't say about the other.
Yeah.
But obviously, I mean, it was a hard time around the club at that time. Obviously, for supporters, players, everybody. You know, I was doing a little bit in the commercial office because the person who was in there was off sick for a while. So it wasn't an easy place to be, was it? But it still felt like there was that bond between you guys, certainly as players, and certainly obviously Len and
Yeah, it meant
Nick and Mike and all.
it just genuinely meant so much to so many of us. Like, and I know that sounds like, you know, a bit kind of, I don't know, romanticist or whatever, but like I remember the first game that I was in charge for at Tunbridge, and I remember giving the team talk, and it was really weird to be giving a team talk to players that you've spent the last however many years playing with. And actually it wasn't like I was much older than any of them, particularly, that we were all similar in age. And it's a weird thing because it's kind of like, I don't want any of them to think that I'm now thinking that I'm superior to them or anything like that. Like, it was literally, but I remember giving the team talk, and it sounds daft, but I was genuinely emotional. Like, I remember speaking and feeling myself getting like a lump in my throat because I just so desperately wanted to turn it, like to try and get us back on a winning streak. And one of the hardest decisions I made was I called Smarty in after the training on the Thursday, and I said to him, look, I've got, you know how much respect I've got for you, but I'm not going to play you on Saturday. Like, I've made it. I think we needed to change something. We needed to freshen something up. And I put Gary Charman in the centre mid instead of Smarty. Because I wanted to go about it slightly differently. I wanted to try and change the way we were playing and try something different. And that was really hard. And Smarty was great, as he always is. And, you know, he was like, look, I respect it. You've got to make a decision. It's nothing personal. Like, that's fine. And yeah, and then we went to Tunbridge, and obviously it didn't, in terms of the result, it was a bit of a stinker, like losing 5-1. But I think the weird thing about that game was that I actually felt that we actually played really well for a lot of that. I know we lost 5-1, but we actually played really well, and there was a lot of positivity. And I remember after the game, a lot of fans saying like that they felt like it was the old Borough.
100%.
And actually, I think we went 1-0 down in about 20 seconds.
It was something stupid, wasn't it?
It's from the kickoff because I say I think because I got like I clashed heads with, I went out for a header with, I think it was Adi Ularunda, and he's obviously just got there first and flicked it, and we've clashed heads. And I remember hitting the deck and kind of just like blacking out a little bit, like that kind of dizzy spell. And I remember just turning round on the floor and just seeing them wheeling away celebrating, and I'm thinking, fuck, like, you know, first game in charge, you've given this team talk, you go, let's get back to it. And we're 1-0 down in like 15, 20 seconds. But I think after that goal, we had a really good spell in the game, and I think we were on top, and we were playing good football, and we were creating chances, and we were actually the better team. And then I think they got a second on the counter, and from memory, I think we then got one back, and were back on top again, and looked like we were going to get back in the game. And then we had a couple of sending offs, and it all kind of went downhill from there.
And for me, I mean, I think that, you know, as someone who was at the game as a fan, obviously it's 15 years ago now, so it's trying to remember. It's one of the games that actually stands out, so it must have been something for me. And I think that the feeling of the fans was that, I mean, both of them red cards were for players really trying to win the ball, right? You know, and it seemed like your whole, well, yeah,
Kinda.
all right, yeah, in their own way. But the whole team seemed to gel that day, and it was as if you was all, come on, let's do this for Gary, or whether it was, let's do it for you.
Yeah, I don't think it was for me. I don't. I think genuinely the players just cared enough that they wanted to get back to winning ways, and I think they were very conscious of the fact that, you know, as players you have to shoulder the responsibility for the fact that you've got a management team sacked. Like that's not easy, especially when you've been with that management team for such a long time and you've had so much good, like, in that period of time. And I think the players desperately just wanted to make it right. And, you know, I deliberately picked Clark Masters in goal and rookie Carl Rook up top because they both played for Tunbridge. And, you know, I said to them both in training on the Thursday, I said, boys, listen, I'm going to start you both because I want you to, you know, I want you to play with that motivation to prove to Tunbridge that they were wrong to let you go, or, you know, whatever it was. And the problem was both of them two are quite hot-headed. And they obviously just built themselves up too much. And yeah, I can't remember what rookies was for. I don't know if I can't remember if it was for a tackle or whatever it was, but Clark's was a strange one because he collected the ball and he went, you know, like keepers run out with the ball quickly to try and, you know, distribute it. And one of their players, I think, grabbed hold of his arm to pull him back, and Clark's just, like, elbowed him, basically. But yeah, like, to be down to 9 men, I think we were 2-1 down. We went down to 10 men. Then I think we went 3-1 down with the 10 men and went to 9 men. And then you're kind of like, this could get horrific from here because there's still a bit of time to go. And, you know, we actually defended really well. We had a couple of chances, but yeah, it was a weird one because I come away obviously disappointed we'd lost, but felt actually quite proud of the effort that the team had put in under the circumstances. Like, everything just seemed to go wrong.
Who went in goal when Clark got sent off? I can't remember that. Was it? It wasn't Smarty, was it? The cat.
It might have been Smarty, you know. Was it not?
It?
I can't. No,
I don't know.
No, because
I remember.
I can't remember. Or did I bring Smarty on to go in goal? I can't remember.
You might have done. I can only remember Smarty in goal against Darlington at home. Incredible. When what a game that was! Incredible. Honestly,
do you know what? That is
fantastic.
That is one of the best memories I have of playing for Borough, because no one gave us a chance. I think John Terry was at the game because his brother Paul was playing.
His brother Paul was playing. That's right.
Darlington. Yeah. And yeah, I think we went down to. I think the keeper. Yeah, the keeper got sent off, and Smarty went in goal. So we're down to 10 men with Smarty in goal, and then I think Neil Jenkins got sent off for a tackle. Wow. So we're now 1-0 down with 9 men, and our centre midfielder in goal with about 65 minutes, I think 70 minutes to play in a game. So the fact that we managed to stick in there with 9 men and get an equaliser, it was incredible. Yeah,
it was an incredible game. Miles, you go in for a bit.
No, that's fine. It's good to hear the stories. Like, yes, Tommy took over after his spell. Had sort of 5 years at the club. I guess he was sort of wanting to stabilise the ship, I guess, and sort of keep us in National League South. You said we had sort of limited budget, so I think the National League South was probably our level at the time in terms of where we feel we should be. What were like your memories? A bit of, okay, you must have played under Tommy for like a year or so. How you remember as a manager?
It was about half a season, but
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. Like, as a fella, like to stand at a bar with and have a drink, like Tommy's good value. Like, you know, I don't have an issue personally with Tommy. You know, I've seen him plenty of times outside of football. You know, and I'll always stop and have a chat, and it's fine, it's amiable. But as a manager, he wasn't my cup of tea, if I'm honest. And I think it was difficult because I think he came in at a time where change was probably needed. And he was very different to what had gone before. Like, Gary and Nick were very much about giving you the freedom to go and play your game within a structure, and it was never about, no one was ever afraid to make a mistake. Everyone played with freedom. You know, we backed each other. Tommy was like almost the opposite of that. He was very structured in the way that he wanted to do it, but he he could be very critical very quickly of players when they got it wrong. And I think to people watching, like even when he was in more recently, especially in the early games, he's very kind of vocal on the sideline, but it's very kind of angry and sort of critical of the players when they make a mistake. And I think he came in and wanted to make a change, basically. And I had been injured. I'd had this operation. I was still recovering. And when he came back in, I needed to be playing in the reserves, really, to get fitness. I mean, I was 34, 35 at that time. And I wasn't even sure I was going to be able to get back because, I'd had a pretty significant operation. I'd had a long recovery. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. So... yeah, and he kind of, when I got back training, he would put me in on the bench and then he'd bring me on in games, but I never really felt that I was fit enough already. And I ended up having that conversation with him and saying, look, let me just go and play in the reserves. And we agreed that, and then he brought me back in for a game after saying I could go with the reserves because he said we were short, but then I wasn't in the squad, I was sat in the stand, and I just felt like it was... I don't know. From my perspective, it felt like he was trying to make an example. Like, as in, if I can do this to the captain, then like you all better be on guard, sort of thing. So, yeah, I mean, as I say, like conversations outside of football, absolutely fine. But like in terms of the football itself, I know he's quite divisive in that sense. Like you've got to be a strong character to be able to cope with Tommy as a manager. Yeah, ultimately, it got to the end of that season, and we had the conversation, and he said that he wanted me to stay for another season, to have a proper pre-season and get fit. But to be honest with you, by that point, I had kind of made my mind up. I was like, look, I think the time is right for me to step away. And that's what I did. That was when I ended up at Eastbourne Town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I think the lads, from what we saw from last night and then on Saturday, definitely play with a lot more freedom. So it's not always the right style. I guess some players feed off it well if they're getting heavily structured and having a lot of rules in place. But our players go on.
To be honest, Miles, it's not even that. It's more like as a player, I always feel like no player ever goes onto a pitch to play badly or to lose a game.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that a player steps on with that intention. And hammering somebody verbally when they make a mistake or like being really critical of them does nothing for a player's confidence. Like it just makes you go into your shell and worry about making another mistake because you're just going to get it in the ear. So it wasn't about the structure. Tommy knows football. Like Tommy's very knowledgeable. He was a good player himself. He played in the Premier League. He understands football and his ideas around football, you can't criticise that, you can't question that. But it's hard when you're used to playing for a manager who sets you up in a way and says, just play with freedom, like play what you see in front of you. It doesn't matter. I knew if I made a decision to go and do something that was slightly off script because I thought it would benefit the team, it didn't matter because someone else in the team would recognise it and would go and fill in my slot and, But where things were a bit more structured and it wasn't really like that, and then you make a mistake and you're getting an earful from the touchline, it kind of just erodes confidence. And, most players are better when they're playing with confidence. So, it's difficult. It's management styles, like it is what it is.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Barry, what's your thoughts? Tommy's been let go last week or so. Club put out a statement about it last week. He, had him for sort of 5 years previously, obviously partly with Ben, and then we had him for about 23 games, I think it was, and he's been let go. So I just want to get your thoughts on Tommy, really, and your decision to let him go. We haven't really touched on it so far, have we? So
no, and I suppose we'll come on to your thoughts in a minute, Ben, as a player, because obviously. As a supporter or as an ex-player, so you've been there. I think that for me, I thought Tommy was always quite hard on players when he was here before, but he kind of got the right players. He kind of got the players that I mean, you go around at the time and think of, Jono and Sam Cole and players like that were playing, and they could accept that. And whether that was just because the way they've been brought up or whatever else, I mean, Ben was saying, totally different style of football. And I think the problem is football's changed a lot since Tommy was here before. Football's changed a lot, and I think Tommy's changed a lot as well. Ben will know back in 2012, 2013, 2014, we was like a revolving door at Borough.
Yeah,
if somebody would come in, and they might be there for 3 or 4 games, and if they didn't see fit, that they was out the door, and somebody else would come in, and Tommy would just get rid of players.
Yeah.
And I think it was probably a lot easier then, Ben, wasn't it? I mean, obviously
Maybe.
now players have got contracts.
Yeah, maybe, but I think as well, like the thing with that is I've never been a fan of that revolving door thing, right? Because I think, like, I'm a teacher by career, right? I don't get to choose the kids that come into my school, right? The kids come to my school, and we're tasked as teachers with taking those kids and progressing those kids so that they are better, academically and in terms of their well-being and socially and everything else, right? The thing with football is you get to choose your players, right? So we have to progress people in the education who we have no choice over who they are or what their capabilities are, but we're expected to progress them. Football's this weird industry where you can go and pick the players that you want, but then seemingly alleviate yourself of any responsibility for making that player the best player that they can be. And that's why I don't like revolving doors, because I think you go and you choose a player and you go, right, I'm bringing you in because I believe you add something to this team or to this squad. If that player then doesn't do it, who's failed there? Because you brought the player in because you saw something in them. Now, if you're not getting that thing from them or you're not improving that player, well, is that the player's fault? Are they suddenly a bad player, or have you just not managed to get the best from them? And I think the other thing with a revolving door is that other players are seeing it happen and they're thinking, Jesus, I might only be 2 bad games away from being replaced. And so therefore you're playing with that level of insecurity and playing like everything depends on it. So yeah, I think football has changed. I think, players are now, they go on contracts and it's long contracts, so you have to be much more careful who you get in. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just think, like you say, it's management styles, and I think the world we live in now, generally speaking, is, everyone's offended by everything. And I think you have to treat people the way that you'd want to be treated. And I just don't think people respond to that kind of style as well these days as maybe they did once upon a time. And that's the difference, really. And unfortunately for Tommy, like I say, I have no grudge to bear with Tommy. If I saw him in the street, I'd stop and have a chat, I'd have a drink with him, it's fine. But clearly it didn't work this time around. And he did in the end bring in a lot of his own players. And for whatever reason, it wasn't working. So, yeah, that's football, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think the main thing for me was you were saying earlier about how tight you were at the back and keeping 20 clean sheets in a season. Can't remember really a game where we kept it under 2 goals. Probably when you're in a relegation fight, you build your foundations on your defence. Yeah. I think that was probably one of his main downfalls from a purely footballing point of view. We were just like a shambles defensively, so something had to change there.
Yeah, and it's as they say, strikers win games and defences win leagues, and but it is the hard. In my own time, the short amount of time that or the limited amount of time I've had it on the management, the assistant management coaching side, it's the hardest thing to do in football is to score goals, but at the same time not concede them, because every time you commit to going forward and trying to score goals, genuinely commit to it, you are leaving yourself vulnerable in some way, shape or form, and you can't ever attack without giving some thought to the defensive side of the game. That's the bit that you have to kind of try and work on, and you have to balance out where are our strengths. if we are stronger going forward, then we need to prioritise that, because that's likely to be our best way of winning games, is to try and outscore the opposition. Well, I mean, it's always the best way to win a game, to outscore the opposition, but you get what I mean. Like, we need to score goals to win, because defensively we're not as tight as we would like to be. I think it's okay to prioritise attacking, providing you are then scoring the goals. But you've also got to be thinking to yourself, well, if that attack breaks down, how do we prevent ourselves getting caught out at the other end? And it is a tough balance. And when I was there with Danny, like, I think that was one of the things that was probably entertaining about the team that we had, which was that we had we had a low budget. We got a group of young. We made the decision that rather to go for like journeymen who will probably keep you in the league, but it'll be pretty dull and not very entertaining. Let's take the risk of getting young lads who are good footballers but don't have the experience and maybe need to be coached and developed, and give them license to go and win games of football. Because I think there's difference between, you get teams that try and win and you get teams that try not to lose, and I'd always rather be a team that's trying to win. And that's why a lot of the games we had down at Borough were high scoring games, and sometimes you'd lose 4-2 or 4-3, and other times you'd win 4-2 or 4-3, or you'd score 5, and then another week you can see 5, or whatever. But it was always entertaining, and we won more often than we didn't. So it's tough. It's hard. It's really hard to produce winning football if you don't have the resources to do it. But even when you do have the resources, it's not just about the money. And I think maybe that's the mistake that's been made a little bit, is because the money's there. It's like the answer is keep throwing money at it.
Mm-hmm.
But you can throw as much money at it as you want. Like, loads of teams have done that over the years. It doesn't get you out of a league, because you've got to have the other side of it, which is unity and togetherness, and belief and freedom to play the football that you're trying to play. And, I think that's probably where maybe it's gone wrong a little bit this year, is they've not got that balance right.
Yeah, I think that's important. What you said there about the cohesion. Yeah, I think that was probably when Tommy's in charge. I could be talking out of turn here because I don't know all the ins and outs, but it felt like there is a division between him and the players, like you're saying, being too critical, picking on their mistakes, and then the statement was quite to the point, I think, when Tommy was let go, talking about resources that were given, and there may be some sort of division there that we weren't aware of. To me, Tommy didn't really feel like the sort of manager that Simon's wanting long term. Just looking at what Adam did, and how impactful he was with the fans and social media, and he's got the message that he gave out. I think he aligned fairly well with what Simon's trying to do. I'm not sure Tommy really fit that, and maybe it was just a case that we had to get somebody in to cover Matt Gray, and there wasn't too many options available. Yeah, I thought the statement revealed a fair amount though about their sort of relationship, I guess, and the situation at the club currently.
I think when Mark Beard got moved on, it was the same though. The statement was very, it was quite a harsh statement, about abject failure and this sort of thing. And I think, again, fundamentally, you have to look at it, and 3 out of the 4 appointments that have been made at the club since the ownership came in have ultimately not been good appointments.
Yeah, definitely.
Mark Beard wasn't, Matt Gray wasn't, and Tommy wasn't. And, so I think there has to be some responsibility there around, what is the long-term plan here? Like, who is the right manager for this club? And actually taking your time to make sure that you get that right is actually really important, because I think it's easy to overlook, potential managers who maybe don't have the name or the the experience, but actually are one of these kind of newer age managers and coaches who just understand today's footballer and understand the modern game and whatever else. And I think but the challenge they've had really is and I mentioned this when I posted probably my only post in the last 2 years on Facebook, but just around the full-time thing, because I just think you're narrowing your potential field of applicants for both playing positions and management positions, because as a player, as I said in the post, if you're a very good full-time player who's likely to be able to get you out of this league, you're probably already playing at a full-time club that's bigger and more established than Eastbourne for more money. And that's not being disrespectful to Eastbourne, but that's the truth of it. So you're not going to get those players, and then the full-time players you are going to get are going to be the ones that either aren't playing at the better clubs, aren't wanted, or are young and inexperienced. And that's how it's proven to be. Whereas if they were part-time, you've got the best pool of players, the part-time players, and the best part-time players that you could go and drag in are definitely better than the full-time ones that they've been getting, in my opinion. So it's a tricky situation that they've created for themselves, and it's interesting that they're now talking about considering going back to part-time.
Yeah.
Because I hope, and nothing I said in that post was designed to be critical, or I think I was quite reasonable and fair in that post. I don't think anyone's trying to fail the club, but I think they need to reassess what they're doing and where they're trying to get to, and how quickly sometimes you need to go backwards to go forwards, and I think they need to re-establish themselves at the level as a higher mid-table playoff team, and then when you get the success, that's when you can start thinking about making those changes. But ultimately, they will make whatever decisions they see fit and think are right, and that's their prerogative to do that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people resonate with your post, definitely. Like what you're saying about the structure and like our vision, and as you say, like now's the crucial time. Like the next appointment feels like the biggest one they've made. Having to manage a relegation fight and potentially pushing in to the Eastbourne League next year. And then, the whole sort of part-time, full-time debacle as well. I feel like, now they've got to make sure they get this one right, because, this could set us up to push us on and keep us up, or bounce back, or, it could just compound the misery, I guess.
It's a massive. This one's a massive appointment, and actually, and again, like, my opinion means nothing, and that's fine. Personally, given how the team have done in these first two games with Robbie in charge, I mean, I don't know Robbie. I know who he is, and I know him from being around the football scene, but I don't know him. But from what I'm told, he's a good guy, and he understands football. Obviously, again, he's played at a good level himself. My inclination would be just let him do it to the end of the season, because I think realistically now, I think they're 3 points from safety. But the goal difference is significantly worse. So really that counts for a point, because even if you get to the same points, you're going to go down on goal difference. But third and fourth bottom have got 3 games in hand. Fifth bottom have got 5 games in hand. Like, even if they pick up 4 points out of those games, or 3 points, you're still suddenly 7 or 8 points adrift. Now, it's going to take a real effort. And do I think they can do it? Well, I mean, if they can maintain the standards that they showed over the last 2 games, I think against the lesser teams, they will pick up results. So, and I've said all season that actually I think the quality in the squad is better than the results they've been getting. I just didn't think that the best was being got out of them, in my opinion. So can they stay up? I still think they can, because I think the teams around them are dropping enough points too, that if anyone puts a little run together, they might just be able to push themselves out of it. But I think it's going to be tight. But to be honest, it's a tough appointment to make now, because if they're staying full-time for this season, you're potentially asking someone to come in on a full-time basis now, but if you go down, you're then asking that same manager to stay and go part-time. So, in my mind, you might as well just be saying, look, Robbie's done a decent job over these 2 games. Clearly the players are putting in a shift for him. Leave him at it. Like, let him see the season out. If we can pull it off and stay up, great. If we don't and we go down, okay, not ideal, but it is what it is. Then make a permanent appointment in the summer, based on knowing what league you're in, whether you're part-time, full-time, and make an appointment that genuinely feels like a long-term appointment, someone that you're willing to back to get it right over time, because they're a good fit for the club and the ethos that you're trying to create. That's my take on it. Like, I feel like there's no point rushing into appointing a permanent manager now on it, because I think Tommy was on like a 5-year contract.
Yeah, something similar. Yeah,
I think I'm hearing that it was more he was on a contract, but there was options. But I'm not sure. I mean,
Okay, fine. Yeah, that may well be true.
No one knows the exact details, but I think I agree with you, Ben. I think Robbie's obviously been around the players. You know, even if somebody comes in and it takes them a week or 2 weeks, you know, to get used to the players and you know, get to the feel of the players. You know, that's 2 weeks we haven't really got. Whereas Robbie's been here since October, November. You know, he's had the feel with the players. He's obviously been working on that. You know, working with the players. And, you know, as a striker, he might have been working with Pemi, and obviously we saw the goals that Pemi got.
Yeah.
You know, in the back end of last year. And I mean, you know, I still think he's like second or third highest scorer in the league, and he hasn't been here since since the 28th of December. So, you know, I think for me that's the way to go about it, is to give Robbie it. You again, like you say, you then know what league you're in next year. Obviously, look, Simon and Alan have got their own decisions to make. They've got their own their own ideas on who they want in and why they want them in, and I'm sure they're going to make that for the best decision for them. You know, at the end of the day, they're the owners, right? They're the ones that have invested their money.
100%.
Yeah, we can, you know, we can all have opinions, and I think opinions are good. I think, you know, we've seen a lot, and I just think that, like you say, it's a little bit dangerous to make that appointment now for next year, because you don't know what league you're going to be in. You know, you don't know if you're going to be full time or part time. That's obviously a discussion for the summer.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be thinking about that now. I mean, obviously, behind the scenes, these discussions are going to be ongoing. Of course, they are, like any club. But it was interesting So we interviewed Mark White last week, and it was interesting what he said. He said that, you know, sometimes the decision you make now actually affects you a year or 2 years down the line. You know, maybe even 3 years. So it's not about the appointment you've got now, but it's just about dealing with the situation you've got. You know what players you've got. Only Simon and Alan know if there's any more players coming in. I mean, I think they said in the statement with Tommy going that they'd gone over budget, so you would expect that probably none are coming in. But then obviously Josh has gone, and Woody's been recalled, so we're 2 players down. So what do they do on that situation? It's difficult, right? But you know,
yeah, I mean, it is difficult, but then also I think, like, Josh clearly wanted to go, right? So I'm a firm believer, if someone doesn't want to be there, let them go, because you're not going to get the best from them. They're going to be playing, you know, with an attitude of, I don't really want to be here. Yeah, Woody got recalled. That's unfortunate. But I said it before. I think the players they've got there's enough quality there to get better results than they've been getting. And I think you bang on. Like, any manager who comes in now is going to have their own ideas, their own way of playing. They're going to have to get to know the players, know what their strengths are, know what makes them tick. They haven't got time for that. And, you know, and again, like you said, like, everyone's opinion is valid. Like, I don't profess to know better than Simon and Alan do. I'm just saying it from my point of view, what I think. They may totally disagree with me, and that's absolutely fine. Like, I don't have a problem with that. Like, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying this is the way that I see it. But, you know, ultimately, they are charged with making the decisions on behalf of the club, and they have the right to do that because they are the ones who are putting their money where their mouth is. And
100%.
You know, ultimately, as I said in the post, I don't think for 1 minute that anyone's trying to fail the club. It's illogical. It makes no sense. Like, why would they? But I think there comes a point where you have to stop, take a step back, reassess what's going on, because I think fundamentally, you know, factually, 3/4 of the decisions that have been made to this point have been poor decisions. Like, 3 managers have been bad appointments, 1 has been a good one. So I think you have to reflect on that and say, okay, what is it that we're getting wrong here? Something's going wrong. And yeah, I genuinely think I think if there were 20 games to go, I would be very confident of Borough staying up, because I look at some of the Phipps is a cracking good centre half.
Oh, great player.
Right? Really good centre half. You look through the team, and I mean, even some of the other boys at the back, I feel like they're the types of players where, with an arm around them and a bit of confidence, they're going to perform, and they have done over the last couple of games, right? You look at that midfield pairing of Eastman and May. So much experience.
Yeah.
Eastman's been brilliant the last few games that I've seen him.
Fantastic.
It's almost like a weight's been lifted, and he's playing with some freedom, and he's been given the license to go and lead, like by example,
100%.
and go and show everyone the player that you are. He's got Adam May alongside him, who's got plenty of ability and is really, really, Adam. I don't want to do the guy a disservice because I've not seen loads of him, but he just strikes me as the type of player that Borough need right now, which is steady if unspectacular. Just does the job and is in the right place at the right time and has experience. And that gives the people like Arthur Grout, who has had a great season for his first season coming up from Step 5. Unfortunately, I don't think he'll stay at Borough, because I think someone higher up will eventually take him on the basis that they can fill him out and make him a bit more physically adept. But he's got a bundle of ability. It allows players like him to go and play with a bit more freedom and make a mistake. And George Alexander, you put the ball in the box, George Alexander will score goals. He always has.
100%.
So the makings of it are there. Momentum and confidence are huge in football, and if you can just turn it so you get that little bit of confidence and that little bit of momentum, all of a sudden the whole picture changes.
Yeah, and how many times have football fans said about the spine of a team, and basically you've just gone through a spine of a team there. And I mean, I think as well, when you add into the midfield, Matt Burgess, who's just he gets that bit of a roll in front of the two. And let's be fair to Eastie. He was a Matt Gray signing, right? So he could have quite easily down tools when Tommy came in, but he didn't. He was immense, and now Tommy's gone, and the last couple of games he's been immense. And I mean, when he came off yesterday, we were playing Dorking. We got beat 2-1. We were 2-1 down at the time. But he came off and he walked past that river end, and I don't think there wasn't one person clapping him and saying, "Well done, Eastie," because we know he's a bit older, right? It gets harder to run as you get older. That's the nature of the beast. But what he's been immense.
Yeah, yes, and you have to manage those players. Like, this is the thing. Like, I don't know what's gone on behind closed doors, like in terms of his training schedule and everything else. But his injury record isn't great. Like, it never has been, and that was the worry. Was when Brad Barry went because he's not a good player, because he's a very good player, but his injury record is horrific. But they got rid of Brad and almost brought in somebody with a similar injury record. But for whatever reason at the moment, he's been able to stay fit. And with that consistent run of games, you're seeing like the quality that everybody knows that he's got. Like, he's a very good footballer, and he's not the biggest physically, but he's tenacious and he puts himself about, and he'll rattle other teams. And he's what they need now. Him and Adam May, as I say, are a bit more experienced. They know how to win games of football. They've been there and done it at a higher level. And, that's what I mean. I think there's enough within that squad to go on a little run. Whether they can actually do it or not, because the problem is that every week when you say that, there's another team who are trying to stop you doing that. And, and every team, Hampton Saturday, on paper, you go, that's a winnable game. But Hampton aren't just going to roll over. Like, Hampton are going to be fighting for their lives as well. And, on any given day, decisions don't go your way. You don't get the rub of the green. Maybe someone's had an off day, whatever. There's so many variables in football that just make it so difficult. But yeah, time will tell. We'll see.
I totally agree. And I think, I've said now for the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks that so many of the teams at the bottom are starting to pick up results now, but the teams in the middle of the table have started dropping points a little bit. Your Tottens, your Tunbridge, your Salisbury's. And, I mean, you go back probably 5-6 weeks, and everybody thought the relegation was any 4 from 5, right? There was a gap, but that gap's closing a little bit, and again, teams have got these games in hand, and I still don't think it's the bottom 4 that will go down. I think that one of these tables from the middle of the table will have a bad end to the season. And when you look at some of them teams' run-ins, they're not easy. But not only that, like you say, they've all got to play each other, and they're going to take points off of each other.
Yeah.
And it's huge.
So I was going to say, and also, like, when you play teams is down to luck, right? So the schedule gets drawn. Now, if you played Eastbourne Borough 2 weeks ago under Tommy when things were at a low ebb and everyone's down in the dumps and the players look like they're sacking it off, great time to play Eastbourne Borough. You're Hampton playing Eastbourne Borough on Saturday, going they've come off the back of a 4-2 win against Torquay and a narrow loss to Dorking in which they played well. All of a sudden you're playing them at a much more difficult time. And 100%. So, there's all these variables as well. It's like, teams that were up down the bottom of the table at the start of the season having a real struggle and a difficult start. Everyone that was playing them then, great, they've picked up a guaranteed 3 points, but all of a sudden that team picks up and gets a bit of form, and all of a sudden one of the title chasers has got to play them and it's potentially 3 points dropped. So there's so many of these variables, and there's so much of the season left to go. It is still a tough ask, but mainly because of the games in hand above them. But I wouldn't say it's done.
No,
by any stretch of the imagination.
I totally agree, and I think when we looked, so back in January, we had a screen up with who we had to play in February, and we was looking at February going, oh my God, we've got 2 games that we could possibly get points out of, and that was Chesham and Hampton, and we know that Chesham's a hard game, right? But again, Chesham's not a team that we couldn't have got something from, but when we went there, they were top of the current form table with 16 out of 18 points, right? I mean, it's that's the luck. A team like Chesham that should be beatable are suddenly, if they play like that for the season, they're going to win the league by a canter, right? And Chesham are never going to do that. So,
and the problem you've now got is realistically, Borough need to be hitting playoff form to get themselves out. But never say never.
Exactly that, and beating second of the league and losing, 2-1 last night to top of the league, and I mean, for me, we had a definite penalty. Even Mark White said in the interview that they got away with one, and we could have gone in 1-1 at half time, which would have been, huge. We then go 1-1, and they fire up the other end of the pitch and 2-1.
Yeah.
But I still think last night was a great performance, and especially something that, if I'd have said if we'd have been sitting here 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago before Tommy went and said, we're going to, on aggregate, we're going to beat Torquay and Dorking 5-4, people would have shot us, right? They'd have said, you're mad, but it happened. There we go. Listen, Ben, you've been here for nearly an hour and 20 minutes tonight. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
I know Miles has enjoyed tonight, and he was looking forward to tonight. Obviously a Borough legend. So thanks for your time. We'll see you down the lane when you get down there. And hope you've enjoyed watching, guys. And don't forget, Ben will be back in the summer when we do the series about the Gary Wilson years. So thanks for tonight, Miles.
No problem at all. Thank you, Ben. Pleasure.
Guys, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks again, Ben. See you later, guys.
Hi guys, I'm Gary. I'm the owner of Polegate Car Sales. If you're looking to buy or sell your vehicle anywhere in the country, I am your man. We're open 7 days a week. Sunday is appointment only, but Ben works 6 till 10 any hour God sends. We look forward to seeing you soon.